Would you like to come up with 10 book ideas quickly? Well, this video may help. Good afternoon, I'm Denis'Thomas, and today we are talking about how to generate book ideas. Now, this is one of those videos that you really need to do with me, so go ahead and grab a piece of paper or get your journal out and dump these ideas into your journal. And if at any point you need to stop and just take the time to do it, pause the video because this is worth doing. You may not need the ideas today, but it's always nice to have a lot of extra ideas floating around. I find that if I continually generate ideas, and by continually, I mean whenever I just kind of have the nudge to generate ideas and keep them in a list, then I never run out of ideas. But when I have to generate ideas kind of on demand, like, okay, what am I going to write next? That's when I often kind of freeze or struggle to come up with ideas. I'm not always good at being creative on demand. And if you're like that too, this kind of exercise every so often, whenever you feel the urge to do it, can be really helpful. The first thing to put in your list is any ideas that have already been brewing. So I'm guessing there are things that you've already been thinking about. Thinking, I could write a book about that. Or, I wonder if I should write a book about this. Any of those kinds of ideas. And remember, when you're brainstorming, no judgment. It may be a stupid idea, but it doesn't matter. Put it on your list anyway, because sometimes those stupid ideas generate really amazing ones. So no judgment on these ideas. Instead, the purpose is to generate as many as you can, and that way you can pick and choose. Or better yet, you may put them together in a new and interesting way that wouldn't have happened had you not generated all these ideas. So the first step is basically a brain dump. Just put any idea that's already been brewing onto your list. Now for the next idea, I want to actually take you to my computer screen and show you what I did with it. So this idea begins with starting out with areas of interest that you already have. Now, Tiago Forte, the guy, the second brain guy, he says that we all have about 12 to 15 areas of interest, and that these areas of interest stay consistent over time. So begin this part by listing out those 12 to 15 areas of interest for you. Let me take you over to mine, and mine look kind of like this. I'm going to do it as a mind map, and the idea is I'm just generating some areas that could possibly produce books that I could write. So here on my screen, you can see a mind map. So I've just done this on the whiteboard in Canva, which is a free software. You may need the paid subscription to access the whiteboards. But I just looked for a free mind map, and this one came up actually. And so I thought I would use it. I've never used this before. So the idea behind a mind map is that you have kind of your main idea in the middle. In this case, it's books I could write. And then you have the ideas that come off of that. So what we're doing for this part is we're making a mind map of areas that could generate books. So as you can see here, I have generated only 8 areas of interest of possible books that I could write based on some areas of my life that are really important to me. So as an example here, I have values in my life. So I have a value for traveling, and I value my faith. And family here is also really important to me. So that is kind of a cross between values and family, but I put parenting and marriage and family. Homeschool is an important part of my life. I certainly dedicate a lot of hours of my day to that. And so that's here. So as a profession, I am a counselor. I'm also an academic. So I teach people to be counselors. So that is part of my career. Now YouTube is part of my career. It's something that I am doing. And then I have a passion area here for writing. Now, I could have easily generated a lot more ideas than this of areas of interest, things that I kind of consistently come back to. Hobbies, things that I watch on YouTube, kind of just areas that are fundamentally interesting to me. But this gets us started. Now, once you have this mind map going, you could either take and have nodes going off of each that show more specific areas of interest. So for example, I do have this area of counseling. I do teach people to be counselors, and two of my areas of interest within the field of counseling are play therapy and counselor wellness. So either of those could generate a book for me. So what I have done here then is I have taken and I have just used the sticky note function here to list out some ideas based on these areas. And then because it's Canva and it's creative and fun, I've added some images to the side here just to kind of remind me some of this. So I'll go through some of my ideas. It's possible that will generate some ideas for you, or you can just pause the video here, list out your 12 to 15 areas of interest, or however many you have, and then the next step will be to list out books that you could write based on that area of interest. So I mentioned that I'm interested in writing and traveling, so I could write a book on how to travel and write. I could write a book on how to travel with children. My husband and I travel a lot together. We've traveled with our children since they were babies, so maybe that's an option for us. I could write a book on 5 decades of faith. Faith is one of my values, and I have been a believer for about 5 decades, and so I could talk about that and how my faith has transitioned during those times. I could write a devotional book for young Christians. That's certainly an area of interest for me. So I'm a writer and a YouTuber, so I could generate a book on how to start a YouTube channel, or I could generate a book on how to podcast about a passion project. I've certainly done that as well. I could write a book on how to write a book in 100 days. I have actually already written that book, and it's the reason you're watching this channel. I could also write a book on how to edit a book for publication. I've actually drafted that book. It is coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But that just comes out of my area of interest of teaching as well as writing, and then kind of incorporating this YouTube idea. So it really pulls those 3 things together. I could write a book on play therapy across the lifespan. That is definitely one of my passion projects, and I've actually already written that book, but it makes sense because it fits my area of interest and expertise. I could write a book on play for personal therapy. I'm a big believer that we can often use these play techniques for our own self-care. Big fan of that. Let's go over to the other side here. So marriage and family is very important to me. And so one of the things my husband and I do that you probably don't know is we renew our wedding vows in a different state every year. We have been married for 28 years. And so I could write a book on what it's like to renew your vows in 28 states. I could write a book on couples that stay couples. We are certainly committed to marriage, but come from broken families, and so that concept is really important to us. We had the great privilege of traveling in an RV a few years ago, and we homeschool, so I could write a book on roam school education, which is the concept of homeschooling while you're on the road. I could write about a book on education through experiencing topics. Again, I'm a big fan. I think we learn better when we actually experience things. And one of the fun things we have enjoyed about homeschool is that we get to go and do things, and it's part of our education. I could talk about planning a year of homeschooling and still having fun. I am a planner for sure. And I like to homeschool, and you know, fun is a value of mine, so that's one. I could write a book on low stress holidays. In fact, I actually, while I've been working on this YouTube project, have started this. I'm calling it the Frazzled Mom series, and they're just small ebooks on certain holidays. I've got one for Christmas and one for Easter, and I'm hoping to put out one for October on just how to celebrate the holidays in a low stress way. I think often we add to our stress as moms. So that's a book I could write. I could write a book on teaching kids to cook. I didn't learn to cook until I was an adult, and I had some very creative concoctions as I was learning. So it was important to me with my children to teach them how to cook. And so I could write a book on that. Thanksgiving is my very favorite holiday of the entire year. I dedicate basically the week of Thanksgiving to preparing, and it is like my joy. It is so much fun. I get to cook, I get to try out recipes, I get to make family favorites, and I just love being able to cook Thanksgiving meal. I don't have that passion for cooking every night of the week, but for Thanksgiving I do. So I could write a book about that. And I mentioned that one of my passion areas within my profession is counselor wellness here. And so I could write a book on counselor wellness. And again, I've already written this book. I actually wrote it to my students to use in their first year of graduate school as a way to begin their learning about how to become a counselor with practicing taking care of themselves while they're already busy in graduate school. But of course that brings challenges, and so the sequel to that book was Wellness Challenges. Both of those are available on Amazon if you know anybody who might be interested in those, but I really wrote those for my students. So as you can see, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That is 20 ideas that I just generated from this mind map of 8 of my areas of interest. So if you can come up with 10 to 15, you can generate even more ideas. Now, I don't have time to write 20 books right now, but it is really nice to have these banked. And as I was doing this mind map, it was really fun for me to realize that I was already writing within my wheelhouse of interest. I don't know why that was surprising to me, but it was. So the next thing you can do to generate some more ideas is to think about questions that you have been pondering lately. I mean, why did this happen? I wonder what would happen if, or, I'm just curious about this thing. I'm guessing that there's some of those questions that you've already been pondering and thinking about. Now's the time just to capture those and then see, maybe that will generate a book idea. I hear a lot of authors talk about how their entire book idea just started with this idea, this concept of something that they had been pondering or were curious about, and it sparked an entire book. The next one is kind of an unusual one, but yet I think it makes sense in light of exploring areas of interest, and that is to think about the genres of books that you like to read. So what are your favorite types of books? Now, we all have specific interest in the kind of books that we like to read. Now, you may have a variety of interest, but you tend to land in those areas. So go ahead and take a few minutes and brainstorm what the genres of books are that you like to read. Now for me, mysteries are definitely at the top of the list. Ever since I was a little girl and discovered Nancy Drew, I have been a mystery fan. But I don't like gory or traumatic mysteries. And so I tend to leave a lot of the hard police detective novels. I leave those, and I tend to, at this phase in my life, focus on cozy mysteries. It's one of my areas of interest. I also like self-help. I like to read memoirs. I like to read a lot of things nonfiction. And I often will find that I like to read things that I've never read before, just for the curiosity and novelty of reading a different type of book. But I tend to land in mystery, Christian fiction, Christian nonfiction, and self-help and productivity. Those tend to be the 5 that I most gravitate towards. So what are yours? What are the kind of books that you most like to read? List those. Now, if you're like me, I don't feel very confident at all in writing a good mystery. I love a mystery that has something surprising in it, and I just tend to not be a very surprising writer. And so I just don't know that I will ever write a mystery. As of right now, at least, I don't have any interest in doing that, but that's okay. I know that I like mysteries, and the fact that I like mysteries might play into a book that I do write. All right, the last step of this brainstorming is now start putting together all of that in new and interesting ways. Think about the things you've already been considering writing, those areas of interest and books that could come out of that, questions that you've been pondering, and the type of books that you like to read, and start to put those ideas together in a way that you haven't yet. And that may spawn ideas that you hadn't even considered up to this point. So I hope that you enjoyed that exercise. You know, if you become good at capturing your ideas, then you will always have more ideas than time. I think that's a really good problem. Your journal is a great place to capture this. And so as I mentioned at the beginning, whenever you have that urge or you have that creative nudge, that's a good time to go to your journal, take a little bit of time, maybe your entire 500 words, and start to capture those ideas or generate new ideas. And keep those in your journal with a heading so that you can easily navigate to them, and you will never run out of ideas. Well, to help me not run out of ideas for videos, if you have a good video idea, please put it in the comment below and maybe I'll make a video about that. And while you're at it, it would be really kind if you would subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.